And just like that, the Asian Cup is over. On today's episode, we will recap and analyze Iran's match against Qatar and share some final thoughts. You know the deal, and you know what time it is. It's time for Team Melli Talk. Rumor has it that Team Melli was fired up for the match against Qatar. Hey everyone, welcome back to Team Melli Talk. There is no need to sugarcoat anything, because there are only negative words to describe Iran's disappointing 3-2 loss to Qatar in the Asian Cup semifinals. But first, let's take a look at Iran's starting lineup against Qatar. Getting the start and goal, once again, Ali Reza Behranvand. Now for the back line, Ehsan Hajsafi, Shoja Khaliazadeh, Hossein Kenani, Ramin Rezaian. The two defensive midfielders, Saeed Ezatolahi, Omid Ebrahimi. Now for the attacking midfielders, Mehdi Taremi, Saman Godus, Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh. And of course up top, Sardar Azmoun. No surprise that Mehdi Taremi was back in the starting lineup and he would be playing out wide. Ironically, there aren't many highlights to share, but let's get right to what happened in this match. Iran got off to a perfect start when Sardar Azmoun scored a beautiful bicycle kick goal in the 4th minute. This was obviously a perfect start for Iran, but after this, both teams would trade possession and scoring opportunities, but Qatar would score the equalizer in the 17th minute through Jassem Gaber. And it is here where I need to share some still shots from what happened. I really don't understand why so many of Iran's players felt the need to park themselves deep into their own penalty area. Akram Afif passed the ball back to Jassem Gaber, and his shot deflected off of Saeed Ezatolahi's foot and into the net past Ali Reza Behranvand. Now there are no excuses for poor defending and blown assignments. After the goal, Qatar seized the momentum and started creating more scoring opportunities by using its long ball strategy and pressing Iran. Akram Afif gave Qatar a 2-1 lead in the 43rd minute when he blasted an amazing shot past Ali Reza Behranvand. Now there is nothing negative to say about the world-class finish from Akram Afif, but take a look at how many players were near Afif, yet he was still able to get his shot off and put it past Behranvand. The first goal that Iran conceded was because of being too defensive and poor marking. But the second goal Iran conceded was a result of ball watching and giving too much space to Akram Afif. This goal also happened because the Iranians were not being as aggressive as the Qatari footballers. If we take a closer look, it was the assist from Ahmed Fatehi due to his slide tackle that kept the ball away from Mehdi Taremi that made this goal possible. Kenani almost scored the equalizer a few minutes later in stoppage time, but his shot went off the chest of Lucas Mendez. With a 2-1 lead at the half, Qatar had all the momentum. Starting the second half, Iran would look for the early equalizer, and they got it when they were awarded a penalty kick and Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh converted from the spot. 2-2, an early goal in the second half was exactly what Iran needed. Iran would go on to create more goal-scoring opportunities than Qatar for the majority of the second half by sending balls into the penalty area and also trying to go over the top. But Qatar regained the lead when Almoez Ali scored in the 82nd minute. In all honesty, some people might say that this goal came out of nowhere, but this was another one of those situations where Team Melli made some crucial mistakes. Once again, poor defending, and Ramin Rezaian did not step up fast enough to hold the line. He actually kept Almoez Ali onside. Team Melli looked for the equalizer, but were reduced to 10 men when Shoja Khaliazadeh was sent off in stoppage time. Iran continued to put up a fight, kept throwing players forward, creating chances, and Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh even hit the post in the 13th minute of stoppage time. But Iran was unable to score. The match ended in a 3-2 victory for Qatar, and the heartbreak continues for Iran at the Asian Cup. In terms of tactics, Iran made some mistakes. Number one, not pressing Qatar enough. Iran was pressing Japan, but we didn't really see this very much against Qatar. And number two, leaving big gaps between the lines. And this obviously was not a very good strategy because this gave more space to Qatar's attackers, and when you give more space to your opponent, this creates problems for the back line. Overall, I don't get very mad when I think about Iran's tactics or formation in the match against Qatar. My reasoning is because Iran was trying to score. Iran was attacking, whether it was give-and-go ball movement, going over the top, or whipping balls into the penalty area. But at the end of the day, Iran lost this match because of not capitalizing on their opportunities and because of crucial defensive mistakes. We all know it's very difficult to play a perfect football match. But in the semifinals of the Asian Cup, you have to be close to perfect because any mistake can be disastrous. And joining me for this segment of the show, my good friend Navid Taher, joining us all the way from Berlin, Germany. Navid, glad to have you here. Of course, we both wish it would have been under better circumstances.
Hey Art, yeah, thank you for having me, of course, but yeah, it is what it is.
Just a few questions for you, Navid. The first one that's come to my mind is, whenever I've been on, recently when I've been on social media, looking on Twitter or X, whatever it's called these days, is that, a lot of Team Melli fans have been very quick to say that Qatar was lucky to win this match against Iran in the semifinals of the Asian Cup. What is your response to that?
I don't think they were lucky. I think we, especially after that 1-0 lead, we really invited them. Like those, after the first 10, 15 minutes, after even being up 1-0, we totally choked. We lost control. We lost the game in those 30 minutes. And I don't think Qatar was lucky. They had a game plan. They were very deadly in front of the goal. And I think that in a way, they almost, deserved to win. We unfortunately played very bad segments of the game. And we can't blame like, oh, they were lucky. Like, yeah, of course, it would have been nice if Ariza's shot would have gone in, but we have to like really question our own self and just don't blame our luck. I think that's too easy, especially if you concede 3 goals.
Now, when looking back at this match, I'm going to be honest, I've not really thought too much about the positives. I really don't feel like going there anyways. But which player or players were you most disappointed with in this loss to Qatar?
There's actually a couple, like especially a player like someone who played probably one of his best Team Melli games against Japan, totally didn't show up. A lot of turnovers, a lot of lost possessions. He tried, but it's just nothing worked, unfortunately. Taremi, I also had high expectations. I feel like, unfortunately, like it is with him in big games, he tends to choke, unfortunately. Didn't have a good game, lot of arguing, didn't get a lot in position, and just was unfortunately one of his weaker games. And unfortunately, also one of my favorite players in Team Melli, Ramin, didn't have a good game, responsible for pretty much 2 goals. And it was a disappointment because we all know when he really wants and when he's focused, when he tries, he can play great. But yeah, definitely didn't have a good game and disappointed. But overall, the whole team was bad. I think our best players were Jahanbash and Izzatoulouhi probably.
Now, the next thing I want to talk about, Navid, is obviously head coach Amir Ghalenoui. And, there's been times where he has said some things after matches that I was not a big fan of. But check out what he said after this match. Quote, "I am to blame for this failure. I apologize to the people of Iran. Tonight is one of the worst nights of my life. We failed to capitalize on chances. From now, we have to integrate younger players in the national team to prepare for the 2026 World Cup." End quote. Now, Navid, when you hear that quote, when you read that quote, what does that tell you? I mean, basically, my question is, are you on board, to have Amir Ghalenoui continue as head coach of Iran if he really does mean it that he's going to start integrating younger players into the national team?
I have to say I'm not on board. For me, the main issue is it's not even about the players. The player quality, in my opinion, is enough to win this Asia Cup, to beat Qatar. That's not the issue. For me, it's more about tactics, style, and control. The major issue for me was control. Since the first game we had with them, we conceded very unnecessary goals, and not against big teams. We conceded goals against teams like Afghanistan, Kyrgyzstan, Burkina Faso, Kenya, Angola. These are teams we should not be conceding goals. We should have control. And even in this Asia Cup, we had this fantastic match against Japan, but then we also lost control for 30 minutes against Qatar. We did a completely bad game against Hong Kong, didn't play well against Syria. And that for me is the coach to blame. Obviously, the players are also the responsibility, but I don't think that this will magically change, especially if he wants to cut some players and integrate new ones, which will also even bring more kind of difficulties. I don't think he's the right person for it. I appreciate his response after the game, especially considering that some games he just blamed blindly in the players, which I think is not a good style in general. But I don't think Amir is the right coach. I think we had a good tournament with them. I'm thankful for them. We definitely overperformed. I don't think anyone expected us to beat Japan with this great tactics. But overall, if you look at the bigger picture, we had too many bad games, and I don't think like in a World Cup in 2026 where we play top European, South American teams, it's going to hard to stand a chance if we struggle in Asia. With all due respect to Asian teams.
Well, from my point of view, I think some people will be surprised to hear this. If Amir Ghalanoui really does mean it, that he wants to bring in more younger players, he's got my support. But of course, I got to see it first, and I got to see who those players are. Navid, just want to thank you for taking the time to join me on Team Melli Talk. Always a pleasure to have you, man.
Thank you.
Now, to finish off this edition of Team Melli Talk, I've got to go ahead and be honest and just say it, that I find it really annoying that there are many Team Melli fans who believe that Qatar was very lucky to win this match against Iran. Yes, scoring a goal off a deflection is considered lucky, but I refuse to say that Qatar was lucky because Team Melli made some very big mistakes, and these mistakes really cost them. If people want to say that Qatar was lucky, then this is just an excuse to not put any blame on our Team Melli footballers. But let's understand the reality of football. You can't expect to win by making defensive mistakes and not capitalizing on your opportunities in crucial matches. In the previous edition of Team Melli Talk, I mentioned that mental toughness would be very important for Iran in the semifinal against Qatar. And when looking back at the match against Qatar, we can see that mental toughness obviously was a problem because Iran underperformed against a weaker team. I hate to say this, but Iran's win over Japan means nothing. After beating a top team like Japan, everything was set up perfectly for Iran to win the Asian Cup. And what did we see? We saw Iran choke under pressure. At the end of the day, Team Melli fans can wonder and ask questions all they want regarding why Iran was unable to win the Asian Cup. But in all honesty, I think inconsistency is a big reason why Iran continues to not be successful. When looking back at how this Asian Cup has gone, we saw Iran start off with a good match against Palestine, then a very poor match against Hong Kong, played better against UAE, struggled against Syria, an amazing win against Japan. You obviously see the pattern. But why is Iran so inconsistent? Well, a big part of it involves having a squad of many older players who are past their prime. It is true that Amir Ghalanoui could have picked some better players, but the bottom line is that this Iran team was good enough to win the Asian Cup. And this is easily Iran's most disappointing finish in Asian Cup history.